Welcome to this week's Off the Court. And joining me today, we have Netball Unlocked co-host Chloe Merrell. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And we have Birmingham Panthers defender and import Gabby Coffey. Welcome, Gabs.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're outside. You're in the park, as only the Aussies do when the sun shines.
I know. I thought I'd better have a bit of sunshine, get some rays, and I was like, may as well stay and do this.
Well, talking of rays, let's go straight into the game at Brighton. The first time ever a Netball Super League game has been played at Brighton. 2,500 people there. Mavericks versus Panthers. And it's fair to say, Chloe, you were there as a spectator. It was a bit of a cracker.
Gosh, yes. We went all the way down to the wire there. Absolutely. I think it was really interesting to see that sort of 1-point game getting played out over the 10 minutes and then watching Mavericks come back with a super shot every single time. And then going into that final quarter, I think with 9 minutes to go, once Mavericks took that lead on the centre pass, it was like, oh, how is this going to end? And the Brighton Arena erupted, because the only word I can think to describe that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the spectators probably enjoyed it a little bit more than we did, Gabby, being actually involved in the game.
I think so. I think it's, you get to actually enjoy it when it's not you're not stressed about it. So it's funny. Yeah, the crowd was amazing.
Yeah, well, it went right down to the wire. And let's talk about the super shot to start off with then, because we did quite a lot of research in the preseason about how the super shot was used in SSN and sort of how valuable it can be. This weekend, I'll give you some stats. Mavericks shot 15 out of 18.
Gosh.
And Nottingham Forest did exactly the same, 83%. I think they're the best across the league so far, but not really supposed to be used probably in that manner.
No, I mean, it went goal for goal, but super shot goal for goal in that game, the Mavericks game at Brighton. I don't know what it is, but certainly from the outside, I don't think we were expecting shooters to be able to shoot them so easily. And I think we have to start asking how the defense of the super shot is really going. If it is that easy, why is it that easy?
I think, Gabby, let's pick that up then, because as a defender coming from the SSN, having time with Vixens over there, how important has the defence of the super shot been for those clubs? Because they've had quite a few more years doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's maybe a little bit underestimated sometimes. And it took, SSN a few years to sort of figure out the best way to defend a super shot, because you obviously want to be hard on, but the umpires are also looking at opportunities to call. So it's about being smart and more taking up space, being one-on-one, but it's sort of that spatial awareness and taking it up so that they don't, sweep into that area and that sort of thing. So I think it's more just that NSL over the next few years will hopefully get better at it, but it is such an unnatural way of defense if you're not used to it.
Yeah, it seems quite unnatural. It's also key for the shooters, right, to get on top of how they use a super shot. I think big talking point was from the game was Ziggy Berger had the opportunity to probably take it in a 2-pointer. She didn't. She took the 1 point. I spoke to her afterwards, and her reasonings are all completely valid. Like, there was 13 seconds left on the clock. All the pressure was back on Mavericks to go down and score the goal. If she'd taken that 2-pointer and missed, what would have that meant? So there's so much going on in those sort of real pressure moments of the game. What were your thoughts watching it?
I think it's the decision making that happens with the super shot. I think that's the piece, along with the attacking and the defending, that is really underestimated. And when you're in that decision making moment and you have the ball on your Ziggy Berger and you have been told not to take 2-point shots, but you know that you could maybe end the game there. I think personally, I was of the mindset that Ziggy should take the one and go for the draw, because then if the Mavericks were being held up by the Panthers defence enough, then by extra time, Panthers would have had the super shot. And the way that the extra time rules are is you win by 2. So then it's back down to Panthers to then score the 2 again. So yeah, I think that's the bit that's really under the microscope, because I think we also saw it in the Forest Lightning game as well. Ella Clark went for the 2 and missed. So the scrutiny, but I think the bigger picture for Panthers is their super shot strategy in general. Had they approached it differently throughout the game, I'm not sure Ziggy Berger might have been in that position in the first place.
Well, I think, Gabs, that's quite interesting, because coaching at Mavericks, one of the things we've talked about is exactly tactically what that feels like, what that looks like, right? So you can't prepare for every single situation. We definitely didn't plan to outscore you in super shots and win the game. That was not the idea, right? But at the time, that's what needed to happen. The players continued to do that, and they needed to do that because we were chasing the game. And luckily for us, we had high percentages from it. But I think that's quite interesting, the coach's take on it. Is there a case, and have you been in situations at clubs where it's very direct to certain shooters that it's like, your job is under the post, your job is the two-pointer?
Look, it's an interesting one. I think when I was playing for Vixens for a solid period there, they had a very much like it was, the shooters would obviously make the decisions, but they'd have a lot of input from the mid-court. So there'd be Kate Maloney that would be like, let's go for a 2. You'd hear her coming down, like, let's work for the 2. And the shooters would usually play to that. The other strategies that we worked on a lot were about holding up the ball, probably like that last 20, 30 seconds we had on the weekend. We had gone through a few strategies about how to play the ball around, try and get it in the last 10 seconds and shoot. I think there was maybe a little bit of not knowing the score, not knowing the time and how long they actually had left. So, so it was an interesting one, but it is challenging when it's like, do you go for the 2? Do you go for the 1? As a defender, I like to keep out of it and let the shooters make their own choice, obviously, because I know shooters love hearing what defenders want to do.
I think the biggest thing from all of this is the key that there is so many different aspects to it, right? And I think as this season evolves, we're going to see so many different things. And I don't think there can always be a comparison to the SSN, which is what we tend to do.
We want to do it because it's there to look at. And I think also, I spoke to Camilla after the game and, I went and explained and looked at it and had seen that Mavericks had doubled in the super shot period. Mavericks had doubled Panthers' score. So like it was 11-5, I think, in Q2. But Camilla sort of looked at me and said, but this is the game. Like, we have to embrace the super shot. There's no point going, here's the 1 point, here's the 2 point. You have to look at it as a whole piece. But yeah, I think there is, as Gabby's sort of beautifully elaborated on there, like there is going to take time and there's going to be learning. And we've got to figure it out.
Well, SSN started this weekend, and it's really funny being an English supporter because you look at SSN like Hollywood, I think. We always think the court's better and the commentators are better and the game's better and all this. So, Chloe, first of all, who's your team?
I think I am a Thunderbird. I do like
Thunderbird. Have you always been a Thunderbird, though?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, I'll let you off.
I think I love for me, like when you look at performance, how a winning team continues to be a winning team is just so fascinating.
They have
Shamira, Romelda, Georgie Horgis as well. She's so exciting. Like, I think it's the way they keep tweaking and changing and adapting and evolving. And Kathy Fellows, to me, it's just such a genius.
Yeah, agreed. But they have Shamira.
That's it.
Gabs, let's talk about you then. So I'm guessing you're still Vixens through and through. You watched the game this weekend?
Yeah. Yes, I did. And yes, I am still Vixens through and through, but I can appreciate Thunderbirds and their, just hard work. And absolutely, Kathy Fellows, I've been underneath her. She's been my coach, and I reckon there's not a better person I've been under. She's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? When you get someone like that, the winning product sort of follows them around. I want to talk then a little bit about imports, because I mentioned Shamira sort of jokingly, but the SSN have been flooded with the best players around the world for such a long time, and not really to the detriment of the Aussie Diamonds. We don't have that import rule over here. We're not as open as that. We only have the 2 imports. What are your thoughts, as an Aussie that's had to come across here? Because it must be hard, right, trying to break through as a young player in SSN when you know that some of the big hitters are going to show up.
Yeah, it is a challenging one, because I think, and a lot of people do say that there should be an import rule because then more young, Australians will be in the league. But I also think the SSN is the best league because of it. And yes, coming over here is a step that I've made to hopefully then go back and play. But in saying that, like, it's the most exciting netball. It's close every week. And I think, speaking to a few Aussies over here, I think it might, benefit the NSL in the next few years if they decide to, take that open rule. Because, I do believe having the flexibility of multiple imports to come in and bringing that different style of play has just elevated the SSN. And I think would be really beneficial over here.
As we look ahead to the weekend, first up, Gabby, just a small problem of London Pools to face.
Yes, very exciting weekend coming up. I'm actually very excited to play their strong attacking line. I mean, it's going to be a good fight. If the game on the weekend taught us anything, it's just about keep pushing and keep grinding. So we just need to take that mindset in, and I'm pumped for it. It's going to be so good.
Chloe, if we put Pulse up there that they are going to be in the top 4, I can't see anybody beating them really in the regular season. I think they're going to go right down to the finals. Thunder, I guess, are going to be in there. Are we a 4-team, 5-team, 6-team race to top 4? Or is it too soon to call?
I think the door is open. I think Loughborough Lightning, if we're being honest, maybe have not lived up to expectation. We've seen that with the loss at the weekend. So I think actually it's a jar, and I think there are teams that can push. I think Mavericks, obviously, with the 9 points that they have, they sit with Thunder. I think Thunder ahead on goal difference. So yeah, I think it is. I think it's more up for it than it has been for a while.
It'll be quite interesting, won't it? I think you talk about Loughborough, and one of the big things for me has been their recruitment this year, because they are an ageing team. Do you think that's going to come back to bite them?
I think they're an ageing team, but an ageing team that have played a strategy the same way for a really long time. And it doesn't look to me like there's a plan B or even a plan C. And I think they got found out. I think Jada Pekova really found out Ella Clark at the weekend. I thought she was amazing. But it was sort of like, what happens next? And Samantha Wallace-Joseph was named to the team, but she was riding a bike and her T-shirt never came off. So was she taking up a place in a squad of 10, which is quite a big thing when you are only now 10. So you've effectively got 9 players to play a game with, and a game that's really, really close. And maybe Vic Burgess didn't play her because the game was close. But I think what Lightning have, and if that situation is such that Sammy Wallace-Joseph isn't available to play so often, they really need to develop that game with Ella Clark and Berry Neal to a point that it is different, because they also got the game against Pulse was such, I think, really exposing for them.
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? I mean, they are playing really with their second string shooting lineup. They wouldn't have recruited on the back of playing Ella and Berry. But like you say, you've got to find answers. And I think that's where the teams come into their own. Gary, I want to come to your team then, because I think you've been about as unlucky as us. I was sat through like 3 operations last week with London Mavericks. That definitely wasn't on my what if card. You guys have had concussions. You've had injuries to Jess Shaw. Gabby Sinclair hasn't taken the court yet. Obviously, Joe Tripp was overseas this weekend. So you've had a lot of changes in your group. How are you all managing that at the moment?
Yeah, I think definitely been challenging, and we've all just come into, I think at the start of every week, it's just this mindset of, it's a new week. We want to win this for each other, and obviously the broader community, but we just are sort of that mind first of wanting to be competitive and stay connected. And I think the connection piece has been one of the biggest parts of like these past few weeks, because obviously challenging when people are in and out of trainings, when we, don't have the full 10 and we're training with, 7 or 8, it's always hard, but we're just trying to keep that solid, team culture and connection.
So what does good look like this weekend then against Pulse? What are you happy with?
Yeah, well, good for me is, one, being really competitive and doing it for the full 4 quarters, and that consistency of not letting it slip away that it maybe has in the past few rounds. And when we have the run, just take it. Like, we've got to keep accelerating and keep building that ground, because you know how super shots can be. It's good to get a run on, because it can just come right back at the start, the end of 1 quarter. So it's about basically just keep pushing and keep going and be consistent. That's what I want this weekend to look like.
Pulse have got Panthers. I guess, Chloe, the other pick of the round is going to be Forest Mavs. Is that going to tell us a story?
I think it is. I think it's going to tell us a little bit about where Mavericks are in that top 4 race that you were alluding to. I think Mavericks, yes, they're on 9 points, but they have played the 3 teams that are at the bottom of the ladder, and they got pumped by Pulse. Sorry to say that, but that's really what happened. So Forest, Lightning, Thunder, their next 3, Mavericks' next 3 games. So Forest have just had a really important win, a second win at home. I think their tails are up. I think things are coming together for them. Mavericks, I think Gabby speaks beautifully there about culture. I'm really impressed by Mavericks in terms of their culture with the surgeries that you've alluded to, like to get those wins, even if they are 1-point wins, they're massive. I think no one really can ask for more, but it's whether the personnel can sort of stand up to, I think Mavericks front end against Jada Pekova and Atash Pavlin that are, riding high. I think that's going to be really interesting, but I think it will be the game of the round for sure.
Yeah, look, I absolutely agree. Well, look, there's loads to look forward to heading into round 5. So much still to come from the games as well. So Panthers versus Pulse, they are our final game on Sunday, and good luck for that for Gabby. We've got Loughborough Dragons, Thunder Rhinos both on Saturday, and the big one, as Chloe alluded to, Friday night, that is Forest versus Mavericks. And I'm sure there'll be plenty more talking points. Thanks for joining us.